virtually, starting from storage to computing in form of virtual machines and network, firewall. Everything is provided virtually. So virtualization is the basic foundation of cloud computing. I also talked about containerization. I talked about what is firewall, what is DNS, what is CDN, content delivery network, what is high availability, what is scalability. All those terminologies you will be able to understand fundamentally if you go through that particular session's recording. Okay, so with that, let me start this session, and let me start sharing my screen. So once you're able to see my screen, please give me a thumbs up. So are you able to see it now?
Yeah, the screen is visible. But
How to minimize this? Yeah. So So as I mentioned, or as highlighted by Abby earlier, today's session is about storage deep dive, right? So agenda for today's session is storage deep dive. It will start with cloud storage in general, and then I'll cover AWS cloud storage, and I'll touch upon primarily the block storage, the object storage, and the file storage. At the end of these I would say concepts, I have also planned for some of the hands-on for S3 bucket. I wanted to also have hands-on for block storage. However, the time permits probably just to complete this much for today's session. But again, there will be continuation for at least three more sessions. Sorry, and some of the next sessions as well will have different hands-on, but for today's session the idea is to complete the storage part and the complete the hands-on for S3 buckets, the fundamentals of some of the hands-on, how you can do it yourself. Okay. So before I start any specific stories, I'm going to touch upon these terminologies because these are the core, and I'll be talking about these terms a lot in next few slides. And I also covered this topic in my last session, but I wanted to repeat it because it will be easy for you to comprehend it when I talk about those terminology in the context of different block storages. So first is IOPS, right? It stands for input output per second. So an IOPS says how many actual read or write operations a storage device can perform in a single second. So for example, let me give you a very common example. Like once you are working on your computer, right, a personal computer, for example, right, you're opening any application, right, any program, let's say Word document, right? So what is where the Word document is stored? It is stored in a storage, right? So once you make a click and open it, right, the time it takes, right, you are reading that data from your storage, right? So the request goes from your application to operating system, and then eventually it goes to uh, the storage, right? So the storage provides that storage responds back, and that specific programs opens for you, right? So that's a very simple example. However, if you go more deep, if you have experience working on with databases and all that, so database is stored somewhere in the storage, right? It could be one of the storage. I'll talk about what are the most common uh, storage type used for databases, right? So once you are doing that, so once a request is going from user interface, if you know the three-tier architecture, if your request is going from a user interface to the backend system, in this case, the database, for example, which eventually is using some sort of storage. So the time it takes to read a specific record in that particular storage and then returns back. So this is what IOPS is. So it earlier, as I mentioned, that everything was provided in a store in a physical storage. Now everything is virtual. So when you talk about cloud storage, it's all virtual. So the input output per second is one of the most important parameter through which you understand the performance and the efficiency of a storage, right? So it's very important to understand. So it's a number. So whenever you see the IOPS, it will be a number. So these many reads or these many writes uh, into a database, or these many reads from a specific storage, right? Whether it's a database or any other storage. Throughput. So next is throughput. Throughput is the measurement of how much data can be transferred, read or written in a given amount of time. That means it's a amount of data. How the amount is calculated in terms of bits and then bytes and then megabytes, sorry, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, petabytes. You all know, right? So that's the unit in which a throughput is being measured. Okay, a high throughput normally means better performance, as in faster data transfer. In a comparison to IOPS, throughput tells us a specific amount of data that can be read or written in a given amount of time. This metric can be used directly to understand if a storage solution is fast enough. It will not tell us if you can sustain a certain pattern of read or write operations, though. So this is pretty detailed. However, what I'm trying to say is a higher throughput normally means a better performance in general. Okay. So how you calculate throughput? This is the formula for it. Read IOPS plus write IOPS into block size. Right now, the size again, as I mentioned, it will be measured in bytes. Right, starting the lowest unit will be the bytes, and of course the highest unit will be could be anything. And read IOPS plus write IOPS will be in numbers, right? It will be, let's say, 1,000 IOPS or a million IOPS, right? So it's a number into size. So eventually it will give you size. So the data which, so that's why the throughput will become some sort of gigabyte in a specific time frame. That's how the throughput is being calculated. I'm sure you must have heard of this terminology, but I hope after this session you'll be able to understand what is the meaning of throughput. Since IOPS and throughput are related to each other, that means to give a full picture of a storage performance, both values are required. Throughput gives us a feeling of how much actual data we can read or write in a given amount of time. If you know that we have to write 1 gigabyte file in less than 10 seconds, we know what write output is required. This is just an example for you, right? I also talked about, for example, okay, let me give you this example later, but understanding this terminology is very significant if you're working as a senior engineer or even an architect. Tomorrow, if you have to select or choose from multiple EC2 instances, EC2 is nothing, it's a virtual machine, and Amazon provides, AWS has named as a EC2, and there are multiple different flavors of EC2 or types of EC2 because their capabilities are different. So, which specific storage will suit to which EC2 type, and which storage or which EC2 type with a specific storage will be required for your business requirement, you will be able to choose only when you understand these terminology better, like throughput and IOPS. So that's why I wanted to highlight these two terms. Okay. Okay. Now, the first storage type is block storage. So far, I'm just talking about general concept. I have not started talking about AWS, but try to understand in general what is block storage. Okay. The block storage is one type of storage area network. Okay, it's a SAN, which means it is accessible over network. Okay, so it's it is not physically accessible. It's accessible over network, and it is being provided as a virtual capability, or it's provided virtually. So cloud providers manage to decouple the server and storage hardware, which promotes scalability because both are decoupled in cloud. Block storage works as a virtual drive in the cloud environment. As I mentioned earlier, that it is provided in a virtual form, not physical form. So it's, you can think as a virtual hard drive in the cloud environment, is what the block storage is. With block storage, as the storage is somewhere else, you can easily add hard drive storage to the storage area network at any time. So because it's a decoupled, that's what the point it's trying to highlight. This enables cloud providers to deliver simple, scalable, and cost-effective storage solution to the client. The block storage stores the data as blocks, as the name suggests, right? That's why it is named as block storage. But data is being stored in different blocks, chunks of blocks. In cloud environment, block storage is the fastest cloud storage you can get. So I talked about, or I mentioned about block storage, object storage, and file storage. Among all these cloud storages, the block storage is the fastest one, though it is relatively slower than traditional server storage. The physical server storage is faster. That's what it's trying to say. uh, Block storage can be used with your web server application or even database server. As I mentioned earlier with the database example, right? So it can be used to make a database server. You can use block storage. On the server, we can get up to 19 million input output operations, IOPS, rate card for the server. These are very basics. Rate is, if you go and search about rate, you'll understand it. It's a basic of the storage. It's one type of storage, which is probably one of the most efficient storage type, which is called rate card. That's why the example is talking about in the actual storage, the physical storage, up to 19 million. Again, this number I had taken a few months back, so these numbers keep changing because the advancements don't not stop, right? So maybe these numbers might have increased, but what I'm trying to say is the actual physical storage gives you very high throughput, IOPS. In cloud storage, IOPS per second we can get is significantly lower. Again, I'm not trying to discourage any of you, but we should know the fact. The fact is, cloud storage is relatively lower in terms of IOPS compared to the physical storage. With that, let's move to the object storage. I'm sure you would have heard of these terms, right? Object storage. So data is stored in form of objects, as name suggests. Every object has its object ID and metadata. Metadata is data about data. It provides very efficient search capability, and that's why it is used for things like data lake, right? It is also used for backup and restore. It's used for static website hosting, and many other capabilities it has. Most commonly used when you need to write once and read multiple times. What does that this mean, right? If you have uh, if you're using it for data lake, right? So you will be writing it once, specific data. Like, I'm not talking about same data you're writing multiple times. You might be writing different data, unique data multiple times, but one data you're writing only once, and other time you're just fetching that data from it for different purposes, right? Maybe millions calls are going into that data lake, for example, over a period of 1 week, right? So that's a possibility, but you're not writing the same data multiple times. That's what it means. You're writing it once and reading multiple times. It is also good for software distributor. Like, you store this data lake, and then from there, you are doing some transformation. Probably you're doing some ETL, right? Enterprise, extract, transform and load, right? Or ELT. You are doing those operations on that data, and then you're distributing, right? Or even in the raw format, you're distributing to different other systems. That's the meaning of goods. It is good for software distribution. Example. of this is Amazon S3, which I will talk about in detail. Microsoft Azure Blob Storage, Google Cloud Storage, which is GCS. Last one is the file storage. So you got hard drive, you put stuff in form of folders and files. That's a file storage. You are in Windows and you mount to a file server. That is a file storage. You, let's say you are on Linux system and you mount to an NFS share. That's a file storage. Typical file storage is like an NTFS. So these are terms I'm sure most of you are have heard of earlier as well. Now, moving to AWS specific storages, starting from AWS block storage, which is also known as EBS volume. So an EBS, Elastic Block Storage Volume, is a network drive, as I talked about earlier, that it's accessible over the network. So it's a network drive you can attach to your instances while they run. What is the instances, meaning of instances here? We are talking about the server, a virtual server in this case. And if you're talking about AWS, then generally we are talking about EC2 instances, right? So that means you're attaching these volumes to every computing machines, which is EC2 instance, right? So that's what he's talking about. So you can attach these volumes to those servers, those machines, virtual machines. It allows your instances to persist data even after their termination, which is this is very, very important for all of us to know. Let's say you terminated your instance, or by mistake due to some sort of outages your instance got terminated, right? But you can retrieve that data back. That's very important for I would say from backup perspective, from restoration of data perspective, right? That capability it has. They are bound to a specific availability zone. That's very important for know. So what I'm trying to highlight here is, if you are planning for AWS solutions architect associate, and in fact I have put these content to that extent, probably a bit more in detail, because I am targeting to help you to, if you're appearing for AWS Solutions Architect Associate exam, that will help you there. So these terminology are or these facts about all the storage type I'm going to cover. It's important for you to remember and understand both those like what is the capability. So that's why I have made so many different points, and that's important for your certification. So just keep that in mind. So as I mentioned, they are bound to a specific availability zone, right? That, what does that mean? I think I'm not about talk about availability zone earlier, but I mentioned about it in the previous session as well. Availability zone is nothing. It's the data center. There are multiple data centers associated with a single availability zone. So one availability zone can be attached with multiple different data center. I think two or three data centers. The backend. It's all abstracted for us, but that's the meaning of availability zone. It's a network drive, as I mentioned, not a physical drive. It uses the network to communicate the instance. Instance means, again, the server, which means that there might be a bit of latency. Let me give an example here. You are working on a virtual machine, right? That virtual machine has a storage, which is EBS volume. Now, you are interacting with that machine through your program, right? Any program for that matter. You're running a command, right? Which is that command, let's say, has to interact with the storage, or you have a stored database on that particular storage in that particular server, right? EC2 instance. What it is talking about, there will be a bit of latency because it uses the network. So the network becomes the strength of network, or the bandwidth of network is become important. How fast you are getting the response back from the storage, that's what it is talking about. So it's important for you to understand these things. It can be detached from the an EC2 instance and attached to another one quickly. That capability also it has, and it's very, very important because as we as cloud boasts about agility, how agility is achieved in all aspects. Of course, we talk about by click of one single with the single click of button, you can spin up so many instances, right? Or you can reduce the number of instances you want to use. That's we talked about high availability and scalability. But these are the features using which it achieves that goal of providing agility to the business, right? So it can be detached from an EC2 instance and attached to another one quickly. It is locked to availability zone. I talked about it earlier also. So one a particular volume, right, storage volume can be attached to only one availability zone. You can change it, but you have to do a snapshot. I talked about it, I think. You can change, let's say there is a volume which is attached to one availability zone. If you want to detach it and attach to another EC2 instance, which is part of a different availability zone, that can be done, but you have to take a snapshot. Snapshot is nothing, it's a backup. So an EBS volume in US East 1A cannot be attached to US East 1B. By default, I'm talking about, okay? To move a volume across availability zone, you first need to snapshot it. So EBS snapshot is one of the important feature. I have not talked about it, its detail, uh, because of only so much I can cover in the session. But snapshot is nothing; it's a backup. There are different actions you need to do before you do the snapshot. Probably we'll talk about it sometime if time permits, not today. Now, AWS block storage delete on termination. So what it does is it helps you to control the EBS behavior when an EC2 when an EC2 instance terminates, right? So what happens is once the instance is terminated, let's say if you're doing testing for in your free account, AWS free account, right? You do not want your instance to keep running and charge you, right? And also it will be waste of the resources, right? So you want to terminate. So how you want to control a different aspect of your volume, right? Different type of storages, that's what it talks about. So by default the root EBS volume is deleted. I'll talk about root, probably root volume. I'm sure some of you who has worked on any of operating systems, right? Primarily if you have worked on Linux, right? Then you have seen these root volumes and all that. I'm not talking about the cloud in general, also on if you have just work on any machine with operating system, and you have seen the root volumes, right? So this is what it talks about. Root volume is nothing but it is associated with the boot up of your operating system once it attached to the server, right? So that's what the root volume is. So by default the root EBS volume is deleted. So if you see here, uh, this is if you open your AWS account and then go to any EBS volume, because if you're creating, let's say, a virtual machine, then it will ask you to perform certain steps. One of the step is you have to attach storage to EC2 instance, right? So during that, this is how it will see. It will show you for specific storage volume. So root volume is by default, this is what it is. By default it is checked. Like what happens is if you are terminating, then you will not be able to retrieve anything which is stored in the root volume. But if you want to change it, you can do it, you can uncheck it, right? However, if you see the actual other volume where your other data are stored, the actual data you're stored, let's say database, for example, this is unchecked, right? That means it is not getting deleted on termination, right? That means those data which is used for your business purpose, those data is not getting deleted unless you want to do it. Of course, you do not want to do it, but if you want to do it, that also you can do it. Okay. So this can be controlled by AWS console or AWS CLI. Use case. So I was talking about you cannot attach a volume which is part of one availability zone and detach from there and attach to uh, different availability zones. Here this is US East 1A. Here it is US East 1B. This volume, right? It is attached to this instance. This can be attached to this instance, but not directly. If you have to take the snapshot and there are some other steps. Then you can detach and attach. So directly it's not possible to do it. So there are volumes which can be and there could be multiple attached, like you can have more than one volumes attached to one EC2 instance. So these are the symbol of EC2 instance. This is EC2 instance. This is the EC2 instance, and this is the symbol of uh, and a volume, a EBS volume, right? This has 10 GB, which is size. This is 100 GB. This is 50 GB. So you can have more than one volumes attached to EC2 instance, and you can have just single EC2, one single volume attached to EC2 instance, and there would be volumes which are not attached to any EC2 instance. So uh, these are completely decoupled in the beginning. You have to attach. So these are separate service which are which are available at your disposal, and when you want to use it, you have to attach to specific EC2 instance, right? So that's what it means that, and that's what it is meant by being unattached. Now, this is very important from again the certification perspective. These questions will be asked specifically. There will be some specific feature they will talk about, that this is the use case wherein I need this particular system for databases. This one should be IOPS. This one should be throughput. Then which specific volume type I should use, right? So there are in fact six types of EBS volume type. I'm not sure if recently it has been updated to any new EBS volume type, but in I think whatever I had studied few months back. I know that you can double check if you go to AWS documentation. You can double check, but I know that there are six volume types which is provided by AWS in EBS. So the first one is GP2. It's also known as GP2, GP3 SSD, general purpose SSD. I'm sure SSD. All of you who has come across storage have heard of it, right? Whether it's working just on computer or you're working on cloud, regardless of that. So general purpose SSD volume that balances price and performance for a wide variety of workloads. So this is one of the most commonly used volumes across industry, not just in cloud, but even in your physical computers. So I1, I2 block express is this highest performance SSD volume for mission critical low latency or high throughput workloads. ST1 SDD, this is low cost SSD volume designed for frequently accessed throughput intensive workloads. So this is very frequently. Let's say you're having a question in your exam, right? You want to use let's say this same term is being used in your exam, and it's asking that you are looking for a cost effective storage solution, right? You're looking for a cost effective storage solution wherein it has to be the storage data has to be accessed frequently, and it also requires a very intensive throughput. So if you have to eliminate other option, where is one option is ST1 STD, then you have to keep this option, and then probably you have to eliminate other, or you have to evaluate. Sometimes what happens is there are more than one options correct, right? So this could be one option, there could be some other options as well, right? So just keep that in mind. So you need to remember these are something probably there is no other option, but you have to mug it up. But at the same time, you have to understand as well. SC1 is the next lowest cost additive volume designed for less frequently accessed workload. So again, if you see here, the difference between these two is this is also cost effective additive volume, same. However, this is used for less frequently accessed workload. That means you're let's say this is something you're using for maybe some data which is in archive. Generally, you don't use for archive the block storage. Maybe some other use cases wherein you're not accessing that data very frequently. Let's say some production data which is having API calls, probably 50,000 API calls every day, right? Probably that is, and then that API call is and the data is getting fetched from database, for example. That database, of course, you might not be using this particular SC1 SDT as a storage of that database, right? So probably you'll be using some other option. But what I'm trying to say is between this storage and this storage, the only difference is this one, right? Other than that, this is also cost effective, this is also cost effective. So that way, in the exam questions, you can eliminate the options and find out the correct one and choose the correct one. Not just in exam, in real time also, if you have to select a storage, right? Then we are focusing on cost, and then you're trying to make your system performant. Then if you're using your system for frequently accessed requirement, right? Then, and by mistake you choose this one, then your system will not be performant because the data will have some latency, because if you're looking for frequently accessed data, probably this particular storage is not ready for it, right? So that's why it's important for you to understand. EBS volumes are characterized in size, throughput, IOPS. We talked about it multiple times. Now only GP2, GP3, and IO1, IO2 block storage can be used as a boot volume. This is very important, very, very important for you know, because for you to know. There could be one question pertaining to this, that the only GP2 and GP3 and IO and IO2 block express can be used as a boot volume, where the operating system boot up is stored. I'm just checking the time. I think I'm on track. EBS volume types, use cases, general purpose SSD. GP2, cost effective storage, low latency. This is very important. Again, cost effective. It is cost effective storage, and latency also is less. System boot volume, as we talked about earlier, this is used for system boot volume, virtual desktop development and test environment of your systems. The size it provides is 1 GB to 16 terabyte. So it's a very good range, right? So 1 GB to 16 terabyte. This much of storage volume can be attached to your EC2 instance. GP3, newer generation of volumes, IOPS and throughput. The baseline is 3000 IOPS and throughput is of 125 megabyte per second. Can increase IOPS up to 16,000 and throughput up to this much, right? Independently means this IOPS and throughput are not uh, independent, sorry, not dependent, right? Not linked here. They are completely, you can have this level, this much of IOPS separately, and you can have this much of throughput separately. So up to, it's talking about up to, that means you can have less than this or up to this. GP2 IOPS and throughput. Small GP for so GP2 is another type, right? So a small GP2 volume can burst IOPS to 3000. So again, it's a small GP2 we are talking about, right? So up to 3000 IOPS it can provide, not very high. It's kind of quite kind of low, I would say. Size of the volume and IOPS are linked. In this case, both are linked here, right? So that means they are not independent. Here, this is independent, but this is linked. So size of the volume and IOPS are linked, and maximum IOPS is this much, 16,000. 3 IOPS per GB means at this much GB we are at the max. Again, it's a calculation, but yeah, you need to remember some of the facts which you might face in the exam. Next. ABS volume provision IOPS. Again, SSD. This is this is definitely one of the questions you might expect if you're writing the certification in AWS Solutions Architect Associate. One question is kind of sometimes even two questions you might get from just from this provision IOPS, or maybe you might be not getting direct question. However, you have to understand the uh, question, and then from the answer probably they are looking for this option, which is provisioned IOPS related uh, uh, EBS volume. Sorry, critical business applications with sustained IOPS performance or applications that need more than 16,000 IOPS. So one thing is, one point here to note, are earlier what we talked about, all of them were having less than or up to 16,000, but here we are talking about more than 16,000 IOPS. That means it is providing better IOPS than the other ones, which we talked about earlier. So great for database workload, because database workload, especially performance intensive database workloads. I'm talking about Microsoft SQL Server, which is provided as one of the RDS, right, services by AWS. There probably it could be again, if you are I mean, there is some concept about share responsibility model and all that, like what is to be managed by AWS and what is to be managed by me as a client or a customer, right? So that is separate. There is a possibility that I'm what in that case, that particular storage probably is not managed by customer. I would say in RDS, I believe still the storage is managed by customer again. But let's not focus on that. What I'm trying to say is. Great for database workloads sensitive to storage performance and consistency, that if you're talking about, or if your user interface is interacting with database, definitely it requires very, very high performance, right? You cannot I mean, let's say you are uh, you're using a user interface which is very very good looking and everything, but the moment you click on a button which eventually fetch the data from your backend server, right, which is where you're using EBS volume, if it is not responding on time, with it is having high latency, then the user experience will go for toss, right? That's what we do not want for business, right? So it's important for us to choose the right storage and the right server, right kind of a performance server. So these questions will be related, it will be wrapped with those kind of scenarios, and then it will put in front of you. So it's important for you to understand the significance of better storage and performant storage from IOPS, throughput, and other parameter perspective. Max PIPS, which is provisioned IOPS, is 64,000, right? Which is very, very good for Nitro EC2 instance, and 32,000 for other. It is talking about Nitro EC2 is one of the instance which is provided by AWS, and it is talking about for other EC2 instance types, the provision IOPS is up to 32,000, right? So again, it's a good number, more than 16,000 IPS can increase provision IPS independently from storage size. IoT block storage 4 gigabyte to 64, right? Sub million millisecond latency, max IPS. Again, like there are terms you can go through. This deck will be shared with you towards the end of the session, or sometimes end of the day today. You can go through these facts later on. EBS volume hard disk drive SDD. So it cannot be a boot drive. A very very important point, right? This can never be a boot volume. Remember this point, right? Again, these are the facts about it, right? You can just go through it. With the limited time, I need to move a little faster. So I'm going to the next slide. Okay. So now, so with that, we are done with the AWS EBS, which is Elastic Block Storage. Okay. Now we are going to talk about AWS Object Storage, which is also known as Simple Storage Service S3. In fact, people knows S3 probably more commonly than any other term. So S3 probably is not probably, I would say it is the most commonly used of AWS service, right? It was launched in 2006. AWS S3 has hundreds of trillions of objects. Yeah, literally. Trillions probably has 10 to 10 raised to 12. So it has 12 zeros, right? And then hundreds of, so you can multiply with few hundreds, probably 3 to 400. So if you can go and check the numbers, it will be somewhere in that range. So it is huge number of objects getting stored across the globe by different clients, different customers in so this is huge, right? And this is they are still the leader in terms of how the object storage is being used. So they are the pioneer of this concept called object storage. AWS is the pioneer of this concept called object storage. This was their first service in 2006. So pioneer industry, it has high availability, it has durability, and can integrate with 200 AWS services. It can integrate with 200 AWS services. Can you imagine it, right? So that's why it is so significant storage type, right? It is so significant. So you need to understand S3 completely in and out. Okay. So various uses of S3: backup and storage, storing something for backup so that and storing something and making backup so that you can restore tomorrow, right? Disaster recovery, kind of related, right? If your disaster comes, then you are having your storage, the backup data is stored, and you can recover by using that data. So it can be used, or it is being used very frequently for disaster recovery. Archive, again, if you are having any sort of legal requirement that you want to store some data only for 7 years, right? So you have that data in S3 bucket for those 7 years, right? Because you're not, let's say, emails are not something. If I'm talking about an email which was sent to you 2 years back from your company, right? How frequently you use that email? Not very frequently, right? So that data, which is archive, which is eligible for archival, right? You can use S3 bucket to store that data. Hybrid cloud storage, again, cloud storage, I talk about public cloud. Hybrid cloud storage, where you're having data center as well as your cloud provider. So the combination of both, that's what the hybrid cloud storage. So that there also you can use S3 bucket. Application hosting, you can use for application hosting as well. Static website hosting, you can use it for, right? Media hosting, any sort of files which is having video, audio, so you can store that data as well in a S3 bucket. Data lakes and big data analytics, this is very commonly used nowadays across in the industry. Any type of industry as a data lake and big data analytics. I mean, you see, as I talked about 200 AWS services, that's why like you are using S3 probably in every possible use case. If you're having a complex architecture where you're using AWS services, I'm very sure 9 out of 10 times you going to use S3 also is one of the many services you're going to use. Software delivery, again, as I talked about, right? You are, let's say you're storing, as I talked about software distribution, right? So you're using S3 bucket for that. You store data somewhere as a common repository, as a data lake, for example. You're operating something on that. You're doing some sort of transformation with that data. And then you're distributing across your different departments and different accounts within your company, right? So you are using that. You should use S3 bucket for that purpose as well. Static website, we talked about it, right? Used as S3 vector. This is a very recent one. I think this got introduced last year or starting this year probably. So cloud object store with the native support to store and query of vectors. Again, this is AI based terminology. I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but yeah, you should know that this is also used as S3 vectors. Okay, so AWS S3 buckets, Amazon S3 allows people to store objects, which is you can see as a files in buckets. Because I'm going to also talk about or demonstrate you some of the hands-on right today. So you will see everything, most of the things which I'm going to talk about. So don't worry about it, but just try to understand it. So S3, Amazon S3 allows people to store objects or files in buckets. Buckets buckets must have a globally unique name across all region, all accounts. So this is very important, very important. What does this mean is you are, let's say you are creating a bucket. That bucket is getting created in a specific region. However, the name you're creating you're creating the name you're giving to that bucket, this is being checked for its uniqueness across the globe. So the name you're giving to your bucket should be unique across the globe. In your account, in somebody else. So that does not mean because it's all backend which how AWS checks it. So they are checking globally. This name is not being used by anybody and everybody anywhere. Okay, this has to be unique. Okay, S3 looks like a global service, but buckets are created in a region, right? As I mentioned, that the name has to be unique globally, but still the buckets are getting created in a region. Okay. Naming convention: no uppercase, no underscore. This much is the minimum and maximum length. You can't have two characters, which is like I cannot have AB as a name of my bucket, right? At least it should be 3 character minimum, and it cannot be 63 character long, more than 63 character long. So this is a range. It should not be an IP address. It should start with a lowercase or a number. It should not start with this pattern. It should not start with this pattern. Object values are the content of the body. Maximum object size is 5 terabytes, right? 5,000 gigabyte. A single object cannot be more than this much size. Okay, that we need to remember. You might get at least one question about this, just this size. Okay, uh, the size related question you'll get in your exam. If uploading more than 5 gigabyte, 5 GB, you must use multi-part upload. Even if you, I mean, this is something they are saying, but I will suggest you, even if you're using 1 GB, right, upload. Let's say you're writing a program through program. Uh, uh, of course, you'd be using API for that. Using API, let's say you have to write into storage bucket. I will suggest that use multi-part upload. So there are different uh, versions or flavors of a method. If you're, let's say you have worked in Java, then you'll be getting options to select multi-part upload or normal upload. You better you select multi-part upload, because you never know the latency and other things in your network, right? So it is saying use if you're using more than 5G, but I will suggest, if you feel that sometimes because if you're working in enterprise, right, you're working as big in big company, at times you don't know the actual size of every object, right, unless you calculate the size of every object, right? So better to be safe and then use multi-part if you are feeling that you have to upload a bigger size probably for some sort of transactions, right? So use multi-part upload. Metadata, list of text key value pair. This is very important, that the list of text key and value pair system or user metadata. So that's the metadata. I'll not show you because you can create, because generally the metadata, lot of metadata is getting created, especially if once you're talking about big data and all that. In that case, a lot of metadata for a given object is being created. But again, just know it. Metadata is data about data. So that is something, one of the feature which is very important feature, and based on that only, it provides a lot of search capability. You can search the S3 bucket for those metadata. That's why it is used so much for data lake and all those big data analytics. Tags, a unique code key value pair up to 10. That's the length of it. Useful for security and life cycle. Version ID. If versioning is enabled, you'll get version ID. I'll showcase all of this, not all of this, at most of this in today's demonstration. Okay, next is security. I think I'm probably running 5 minutes late, but yeah, I think I should be able to cover it. AWS S3 security. So there are multiple ways to secure your S3. See, the security, I would say here we are talking about uh, the IAM side of it. Okay, IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. So we're not talking about the overall security at the moment. We are talking about, in this slide, the focus is IAM, Identity and Access Management. Right. So all this security, especially the IAM part, is based on least privilege. Like, what is the meaning of least privilege? The least privilege is you are giving only that much level of access to a person or a service as much he or she requires, not more than that. That is called least privilege. So there are three policies primarily here: resource based, bucket policy, object access control list, bucket access control list. Okay. So bucket policy, bucket wise rules from the S3 console allows cross account, which is something I'm going to show you, right, while I'm going to show also some capability of S3 bucket in hands-on. And this is also the most commonly used policy for securing your uh, S3 bucket from IAM perspective, right? So that's what the bucket policy is. I'm going to show you how it looks, the how you create the bucket policy and all of it. Object access control list and bucket access control list, it's a fine grained, it's a less, relatively lesser common. By default, it is disabled. You can enable it, however it's quite fine grained, as I mentioned here. And this also is not as common as the bucket policy. An IAM principal can access an S3 object if the user IAM permission allows it, or the resource policy allows it, and there is no explicit deny, right? So this is the combination using which the IAM principal works. Encryption encrypts the object in Amazon S3 using encrypted keys. Okay, this is the example of bucket policy. Again, if you see here, there's a version which comes by default from AWS. Mm, this is something which is the ID, you can say, which has to be, I would say, unique for a given policy. Effect, it's allow or deny, right? Principle, if you're allowing for everything, right, then it's star. If you're allowing only for specific, then you have to mention it. Action, which action you're allowing, right? I'm just allowing for get object, that you can just read something in a S3 bucket, right? The meaning of this whole particular policy is that in this particular bucket, example bucket, I'm allowing everything, because here inside it, whatever is there, I am just depicting it using slash and the star. And here also principal is a star. That means I am allowing everything and everybody, which is to read the bucket, because it's a get object, you can read it. And it's for everybody, right? So this is the meaning of it, like inside this bucket, I am allowing everyone to read anything which is part of this bucket called example bucket. So this is for that particular uh, allow, or for that particular policy, the bucket policy will look like this. Okay. uh, so this is, I think they have the example is for grant public access to the bucket, force object to encrypted. So again, I'll show this in the demo, so don't worry about it. So this is the depiction of this. The If you're allowing a bucket for public access, then how it will look. The worsening is very important. Worsening, what is the meaning of worsening is you can upload same file multiple times with some updates, right? Whether you added something in the same file and you update it twice, the exact same file but with some updates, right? That's what the worsening is. That's why it is showing like same document has version 1, version 2, version 3. It will look some you'll see in a different way in when I show the demo. But again, I'll show this also in the demonstration. Storage class is very important. Uh, so Amazon S3 standard, infrequent access, 1 zone infrequent access, glacier instant retrieval. Again, because of lack of time, what I'll do is when I'll demonstrate this part also. I'll try to cover some part of it. Okay. So I'll take not much time, because probably next 5 minutes I have to start my demo. So what I'll do is let me see how much I can cover in next 5 minutes, and I'll switch to the demo. And if the time permits, then this storage class, this is what I'm talking about, right? Storage class is very, very important from your understanding purpose, costing purpose, because if you're putting your objects in the wrong in the wrong storage class, then your company has to pay a lot of money, literally a lot of money, right? For example, if you are saving your emails, which you want to save in for archival purpose for 7 years, right? After every 6 months, right? You should be using Amazon Glacier, right? Glacier also has three different types. But at least if you do not do it and you choose any other option like say general purpose, then you have to pay hell lot of money. So you should understand the significance of every storage class. I'll talk about it to some extent as much as time permits. Okay. Standard frequency. Let's see how much time I have later on. High durability. Again, S3 bucket uh, is very known for high durability. Probably the one of the most durable option which any cloud provider provides. S3 bucket is known for their 11.9 durability. Let me give you example of durability and availability. Okay, you should be able to understand and differentiate these terms. Highly available, I think you all understand, but are you able to differentiate what is the meaning of being durable and what is the meaning of availability? uh, I have one example which I borrowed from Ashish Prajapati, who is one of the AWS employee, who is also one of my mentors. So he in one of the session he has explained this very beautifully. Let's say you're working in office, right? And you left your laptop bag. Let's say you went for some probably evening party with your colleagues, right? And you came back late. By the time the office closed, you left your laptop bag in your office, right? Now you have to go back home and come back again tomorrow, and then you can have access to your laptop bag. Now, during this period, when between evening today evening till tomorrow morning, till you come back to office, your laptop is available to you. Can you guess? Is your laptop available to you? I would say no. You cannot access your laptop because it is locked inside your office. You're not allowed to enter your office during that 12 hours period. So that is the meaning of availability. Your laptop is not available to you for those 12 hours. However, your laptop is still durable. That means now you cannot access it, but it is stored safely inside your office. It is not going anywhere. It is not lost. It is not stolen. It is still there. So that is the meaning of durability, right? So your system, your laptop is stored, it is durable, it is not available for some period of time. So that's the difference between being durable and being available. I hope this example makes you sense, makes some sense, and it gives you easy way to remember this concept. If you store, let's say, and what is the meaning of 11 nines? If you store these many objects, I think this is 10 million probably objects with Amazon S3, you can on average expect to incur a loss of a single object, only single object, once every 10,000 years. So this is the meaning of 911 durability. Okay, so understand this. You might be having some one question probably from this, maybe not, but yeah, you should understand this. Measure how readily available services. Example is okay. So availability is also very high, but it is only 99.99 and not available. So 99.99 available availability means it is not available 53 minutes a year. That's what they promise. Sometimes they might not meet that promise, but most of the time they meet it. Okay. Again, I talked about that. We'll talk about this in detail later on. Storage clause. EFS is something probably, let me talk for just 2 minutes. I'll not again go in detail. Elastic file system. So this is again very important one. You will be having definitely couple of questions from this as well if you're writing for AWS Solutions Architect Associate. So remember some of these facts. I would say the facts. Highly available, scalable, expansive. This is very important for you to know. Like if you're providing EFS, right? In a single go, it can provide service because it's a managed service, right? It can provide services to multiple EC2 instances at any point in time in different availability zones. So that's why it is different than EBS. EBS does not have this capability. In runtime, it is not feasible. However, here a single EFS file system can you can attach EFS to multiple instances which are residing in different availability zones. So that's a very important fact for you to know. It's highly available, scalable, expensive pay per use. Okay. EFS scale, thousands of concurrent NFS client, 10 GB plus throughput, and all of it. So again, there's a lot of important detail captured in the slide. The slide will be shared with you. You can go through it later on. Okay. So I need just 1 or 2 minutes of break. I'll have some water and then we'll start probably in 2 minutes, if that's fine.
Yeah, it is good. One.
Okay, so let me switch off my camera for a minute or two and then we'll start in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for waiting. Let me just sign into my free AWS account, and then I'll start sharing my screen. So most of you should be having your free AWS account. If you don't know how to access it, it's very easy. You can just Google it, or if you have any issues, let me or anybody, Abby and others also would be knowing, I believe. We can help you how to create your free AWS account. This is valid for 6 months. Earlier, it used to be valid for, I think, 1 year. Now they've reduced to 1 month, sorry, 6 months. So you can make use of this because the services are very, very costly. Better to use the free account. So this account I've created only few days back. So I'm going to show you using root login, which is not the ideal one. I have other accounts as well, but for the demo purpose, I've just created this one. So I did not have much time to create my IM account. So that's why I'm using it through root account. But I would suggest that if you're using it for longer period, not just for one or two demo or one or two testing, then use your IM account. The benefit is it is more secure, and also 1 second. Also, you will learn a lot about security. Sorry, security means IM policies, which service has to, for specific service, which access is required, all those things. You'll learn more in that. It is more secure, as well as you'll learn about a lot about IM policies. Okay, so now I'll just share my screen. I have logged in. Let me know. Let me know once you're able to see my screen. I'm sharing again. So in hands-on, I'm going to show you these three things: enabling for public access, enabling versioning, updating storage classes, and automating it. Okay, so these three or uh, four topics I'll try to showcase. So in this course, you will be able to understand a lot of other things also, which is implicit to all these capabilities, which I'm going to demonstrate. Okay, so with that, let me show you the this is my free account. Okay, and I've logged in as a root user. So this, you can see, I have done it in last probably 1 week, starting from 7 December to 12 December, right? So I was doing all this demo for testing purpose. Now what I'll do is the first one, if is enabling for public access. So what is the meaning of enabling for public access is, by default, if you're creating a bucket and if you're not changing any feature, right? If you're leaving all the features by default to how it is set by AWS by default, without any changes, then in that case, it is blocked for any public access. It's all encrypted at server side, so you don't need to anything. if you're not changing your configuration again, then everything you are storing in your storage bucket, the bucket which you have created. First of all, it's publicly not accessible, it's blocked, it can be accessed only by you. And the second is it is encrypted at server end. That means at S3, where S3 is, right, at AWS side. So it's a encrypted. So that means it provides server level encryption, which is the way it secures it. And second is it also provides IAM level security through blocking the public access. Okay. Now I will try to show, because S3 bucket is used a lot for public access, or maybe the account. Let's say you're working in a department one, and let's say there is a bucket which is used by HR department in your company, and you are the one who has created that particular S3 bucket for your team, right, with your project. So you have to remove the not public access in that case, but the access has to be modified, the policy has to be modified for providing access across account, right? So let's say you are using for website hosting, right, static website hosting, and you want to use it for public access. That time you have to completely block the public access. So you'll see all of this in this demonstration. You'll also understand that what is the key, what is the all those things, the how S3 bucket looks and everything. So let me create a bucket first. So I'm clicking on this create bucket. The region I've selected is London, Europe, London. It's a So this is the old bucket. I'll just change it a bit, and then I'm just giving the bucket 5 here, or 6. ACL disabled here, ACL enabled. So by default, it's disabled. If you see here, block all public access. That means everything is blocked. Nobody else can access it. I'll demonstrate this. Versioning is also disabled by default. Encryption, server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed keys, right? So it's AWS who does this encryption at server side, not me. Bucket key, it's enable. So if you just read it out, what every feature is doing, you'll understand, right? So because of lack of time, not focusing much on this, but it is talking about a lot of things. So you can, once you do it, you'll be able to understand what it is talking about. But in general, I mentioned that I'm leaving everything as default. I'm not changing any existing configuration when I'm creating it first time. Okay. So I just click on create bucket. So the bucket has been created, right? If you see here, December 14, 11, 18, this is UK time zone, UTC. I'm just opening it. Now I'm uploading some file into it, which is an object. Okay. So I'm adding an object to this bucket. So I'm using this demo file. This is nothing but one of the HTML file I have created. Okay. So if you see, destination is S3 Kumar demo / bucket 6, the bucket which I've created. This is where it is getting stored. And now I click on upload. Okay. So close. Now here, if you see the name, the type, the last modified, and storage class by default is standard. Okay. I'll also try to show you how to change this. Sorry. Yeah. Now let's open this. So you see this, This is the owner. It's all encrypted. AWS region. This is the region: Europe, EU, West to London. Last modified size is 157 byte. Type is HTML. This is the key. Okay, but the absolute key becomes uh, this one, where it gives the name. This is not the absolute key. Sorry. The absolute key becomes the this one, https. If you're, let's say, you're making an API call, right? So then it will be this one and slash the bucket name. So it will be the name of your bucket. Sorry, name of bucket slash the name of the file. There could be a folder I could have created inside this. I would have put this. Then it will happen like the name of the bucket slash folder name slash file name. So then it will be the absolute path. Okay, and that path is also the key. Like, let's say if you are writing an API through which you have to store this file through API call, right? Uh, then you have to use this as a whole path. Your key will be nothing but a path, right? Where you will be writing that particular file in the bucket. Again, so this you need to understand. Let's try to open this, right? So let's try to open what this particular file contains. So click on this open. So this reads, welcome to Pawan's Cloud Builder Series session storage deep dive. Hope you are enjoying it. What a wonderful demo, right? So this is what I mentioned in this file. Okay. Now I'll show you something interesting. Let's copy this and try to open separately. Access denied because I'm trying to open it outside the, as why it is opening here in first place and why it is not opening here. Because publicly it is not accessible. It is not understanding who is making the call. It could be anybody else making the call, right? That's why access is denied, because public access is blocked, right? As I showed you in the beginning, the public access is not enabled. Why it is opening here? Because here what is happening is, till here it's same, till HTML it's same URL. But after that, you can see there's a huge encrypted and, or I would say encoded credentials, which is when the call is going, it is able to identify that requester is Pawan Kumar, right? Or the owner of this particular storage bucket. So that's why it is allowing and it's able to open that file. Okay. But in this case, the access is blocked publicly and it is not able to identify who's making the call. That's why it is coming access denied. Okay. Now how to enable this? So let's go to this bucket, go to permissions. First of all, I'll edit this block public access. So I'll disable it. Now everything is allowed. I'll make this change, save changes. It is saying updating the block public access settings for the bucket will affect this bucket and also all objects within. This may result in some objects becoming public. So they want us to confirm. So I confirm it. Now, immediately it is asking for bucket policy. Okay. So I'll edit it. Now here I have to paste the policy. To save the time, what I have done is the policy which I had created earlier, right? I have copied it here. I'll just explain to you also what it means, but I'll explain you again later on. I'll just copy paste it and change a few things which is relevant to this particular bucket only. So this is the policy. So this is a statement. I'll change it to statement 6 because it's a unique, should be unique ID. So I'm changing it to statement 6. This is allow for effect. This is principal, which is value having as a star, which is the meaning of it. It's allowed for everybody. Action is it is allowed for what? It's exact. It is allowed only for get object. That means you are just viewing it, you're just reading it, you're just fetching it. You're not able to do writing and any other operation on it. And then the rn, if you see here, I'm just copying it here from here and then replacing it. I pasted it, right? So this rn, the rn stands for Amazon resource name, right? So this is getting created automatically. I just pasted here. What is I'm trying to say, probably you're not able to see it because the it is not. Let me try if I can increase the size. Now you can see it better. So you can see it, right? So here the bucket name slash star means what I'm saying with this bucket policy, that I'm allowing everything which is part of this inside this bucket, every object or every file. Not use file, but object is the right word. Just for understanding perspective, I'm using file for you. Okay, now this is done. I do not need to do anything. I'll just use the save changes button. Okay. So now I have done two things. I have allowed public access and I have used the policy, means I am giving public access only for reading the file, not writing into bucket. Okay. Now if I click on this now, it's able to read, right? Understood? So this is how you are able to, let's say you are hosting a you're doing a static website hosting, and you want your uh, content or objects which are part of that particular bucket to be accessed publicly. You can do it in this fashion. Okay. Let's move to the next demo. What is next demo? The next demo is enable versioning. So to do that, I have to change something in this file. What is the file? Yeah, demo file. So I'll change the content of it. Open with this. I'm just opening in a notepad. Okay, unable to see it. Next session will be on VPC. Now my file has been edited. Okay, I saved it. Let's upload this file. So this file is now updated. If you see the time, it's 11:28 UK time, of course. So I'll just copy this path so that I'll use it for uploading this file once more, right? Now I will first enable the versioning. Versioning is disabled by default. So I'll go to properties and edit here. Bucket versioning, I have enabled it. Okay. Save changes. Now I'll open this bucket again and let me upload the So I'll go to add files, upload, close it. So versions. So you can see that this file got uploaded at 11:18, which is close to 12 minutes back. And this is the latest file. And if you see, both are kind of linked. This is the uh, depiction of these two files are linked. This is the latest one, right? So let's open this one. Let's open through this open thing, right? Do you see the changes it reflected? Next session will be on VPC, right? That means the new content you can see in the new file, but is the old content is also there? Yes, it is. If you go back, and then this is the old one which I uploaded a few minutes back earlier, right? The first file. If you open this by clicking on this, then that particular update which I mentioned, that next session is for VPC, is not there. That means it is old file, right? So this is how you enable versioning. Of course, there is a way to delete, and then there are reasons due to which versioning is required. But yeah, that requires few more demos how to delete it safely and then not lose all the files, rather some specific version only. So that's the demonstration which is for versioning. Let's go to the next demo, which is very important for exam perspective. Updating storage classes and automating it. Okay. So this is the last demo. We already are towards the end of the session. I hope it should not take much time. Now let's go to the bucket and let's do one thing. Go to properties. Sorry, go to objects. Go to this file. So one thing which I wanted to show you here is this. What you can do is you go to storage class, right? By default, it is the standard is then, like if you're creating any bucket, by default standard is the class. Now you, if you want, you can change it to intelligent tiering, or you can change it to standard IA. So quickly, standard class, sorry, standard is something which is having some specific number of days. It is used mostly when you are looking for storing that set of data which you're using very very frequently, very with high frequency production systems, right? You can just talk about a production system which you are very sure will be used very frequently, right? So that's where you'll be using standard. The also there are other features, right? You can just go through the slide. Because of lack of time, I'll not be able to focus much, but it is more highly available than other categories like standard IA, right? For example, IA stands for infrequently accessed data, right? IA is infrequently accessed, that means once a month kind of data. So basically, depending upon these requirements of your business, you can choose, right? So now I'm changing from a standard to standard IA, and I can save it, right? So This also you can do. Now, if you go back and then open that file which you had created, let me close this. Then you will to see it. Now, uh, 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 where is this? Yeah, so storage class here it has been changed standard. Earlier it was a standard. Now it is a standard IA. So that change happened. The last demo is automating this bucket completely, that you have to just set it up once, and whatever way you have configured it is going to update and change your files from one specific class types or storage class types to other. Okay, so lifecycle rules. So you create lifecycle rule. I'll not create it because this feature is chargeable. It will not, it's not free of cost. So I'll just show you. I'll not just click on the save button or create button. I'll just show you. Transition current version of object between this. See, if you see here, transitions are charged per request. So these are chargeable capabilities. Okay, if once you are doing this demo, do not do it. And if you do it, probably just be mindful that you will be getting charged for it. Okay, so uh, my bucket right now has a object which is stored as this class, right, under this class, a standard IA. Now if I want to change it to, let's say, one John IA. One John IA is something which is very risky. Like if you want to store some data which is in testing environment, it's fine. Or maybe some sort of backup if you want to do, it's a secondary backup. Not, let's say you are having primary backup somewhere else and you want to create secondary backup, then you can use this because it's a stored in one single availability zone. That means if your is if this storage is due to any reason is not accessible or not reliable due to outage or anything, maybe you will lose this data, right? The durability also is not as good. Okay, or durability might be good, I would say, but availability is not very high because it's part of a single availability zone. So be mindful if you are using this storage class for your business purpose. So let's say I want to do it for after 45 days or 50 days, for example. So do it. Next, maybe I want to use, okay, Glacier flexible retrieval. I want to do this after 100 days, for example, right? So I can do it. And then I can click on create rule. Okay, so if you see here, upload, I mean, it is showing, right, days 50, days 100. So whatever I create, this will show you. And once I create it, I should not be worried about it. The system will take care of it. Okay. Um so with that, I'm done with this demonstration as well. Of course, I wanted to focus a bit more on some of the topics like storage classes I should have, because you will be getting at least two questions for sure if you're writing exams, and also for a regular work in your offices, your enterprises, you should be able to understand this regardless of which cloud provider you're working. And this capability is available with different names or different service names in Google Cloud, Azure Cloud. Every cloud providers provide this capability. So you should understand these storage classes. Okay. So with that, I'm done. And thank you so much. Back to Abby and team.
Yeah. Hi, Bhavan. Thank you for the wonderful session on S3 EBS and also for the hands-on demos. And we will have a short quiz before ending a session.
Yeah, I can
You
stay
will,
for another 6 minutes. After that, I have hard stop, so I have
yeah,
to.
sure.
Uh,
So meanwhile,
yeah,
before starting a quiz, if you guys have any questions on the session, right, you can ask for it for the next 3 to 4 minutes.
yeah.
I think we had several questions on the chat. I have answered few, but I think Amisha have asked
Okay.
what kind of data can be stored in the EBS, what all the data can be stored in EBS and data types.
Yeah, so I think in one of the slide I mentioned that EBS is generally used for uh, creating a web server, right? If you are creating a web server, let's say you are creating an EC2 instance, because first of all you need to have a server, and you are attaching your EBS volume or storage, you can say EBS storage, to that particular server. So you going to use database server, then you need to use it EBS. Let's say you are going to use a web server application server, there you are going to use is use EBS volume to attach that volume to that particular server or EC2 instance. Server means it's EC2 instance in the context of AWS. So the common use of EBS volumes are databases, means that creating a server which is where you're storing you're installing database, right? And then second is application server and web server. So let's say you have to run a Java application as a service, right? Or not one, multiple applications, right? So there EBS volume is the common use case. Hope this answers your question.
Yes, Pawan. Do you guys have any other question? Anyone?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Praveen, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so can we expand that EBS volume in suppose we have increased to we had a specific volume size for EBS maybe 250 GB or a few TB, and then we want to add additional drive. Is it possible, or it
Yeah, yeah,
will be compatible with the Windows OS?
Mm. I think mostly it is compatible with the Linux, and there is one specific type which is compatible with the Windows. But I need to double check this part, which one is compatible with Windows. But most of them are compatible with Linux flavors. I need to double check on the Windows side of it. But
Okay,
you can
thank
attach extra volumes to a given um, EC2 instance.
okay, thank you.
So any other one is having any questions on it? And regarding the PPT slides, you can fill the feedback form which I pinned in the chat so that I will share the PPT along with you, whomever asked. And meanwhile, Nandini, can you bring up the screen for the quiz today?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Hope my screen is visible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, guys, can you please open your phone and scan this QR code to join this Slido competition?
Thank you, Dhanush.
Suppose if you are attending through a laptop, you can find the URL link for this particular Slido through the chatbot.
If join, can you please thumbs up here? We can start the quiz.
So, Abby, thank you, and thanks all the participants for joining this session. I need to drop off now because of the hard stop, and let's connect in the next session, hopefully next month.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pawan, for the wonderful
And
session. We can join the later session. Yeah.
yeah, and Wish you a very happy New Year and Christmas. Let's connect in the New Year. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks,
so much,
Pavan.
Pawan. Bye.
Hey
Okay.
guys, shall we begin?
Yeah, I think so. Total 13 members are there. We can start the quiz. Yeah.
Okay.
Which storage type stores data as object with metadata and the unique ID? Everyone answered correct. Yeah. Which AWS services is primarily used for object storage? 5 seconds more.
So far we have like a five more questions is being done. So let's go to the final leaderboard and see.
Yeah.
So we have Venkat Raman as like a first one who is being actively given the correct response and the short time. And next we have Bhumi and Sharmila. So congratulations for those who have been at the top three level, and also congratulations for Amisha, Priyanka, Sudarshan, Adarva, and Dhanush as well. I think this time we have a quiz which has some kind of a twist, I guess, created. Hope you guys had a good learning sessions on today.
Yeah. Thank you to one and all who participated in the quiz and had an attempt. And congratulations to Venkat, Bhumi, and Shamila who has won the board. And if you have any feedback, feel free to unmute and say. And as well as I share the feedback link along in the chat as well. You can put it over like the feedback form, so you can fill that as well. Yeah. Yeah, thank you everyone who has joined and makes this session engaging and impactful. And thanks everyone. We will meet in the next session on the next month, yeah, which will be on networking. Yeah. Thanks, Nandini, for conducting the